Disclaimer, we'd like to note before the start of this interview that the opinions about to be expressed by the guest on tonight's Gettin Salty Experience podcast are that of the guest and do not directly or necessarily reflect the views of the host of the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
Put the fucking fire out!
You're listening to the Gettin Salty Experience podcast.
Hello! Joseph N. Snyderman in the chat. Joseph N. Snyderman. I gave him a hello.
Snyderman.
A
QC Beast.
QC Beast is in there. Brian K. Mike Chavala. It's my buddy, Mike Chavala. Call him Michael. He's helped me out with the 343 segments. Big Mike.
Mike Chavala.
Likes to be called Michael.
Michael.
I don't know
Michael
why.
S.
He doesn't like to be called Michael.
Oh, shit. I got to call
What's
Tilly.
up, fellas?
We're going for lunch.
Oh, that's
going for lunch?
right.
I forgot.
Who's
Tilly.
going for lunch?
Me and Tilly.
Yeah.
Oh, when's that?
Don't develop short arms.
I was going to say, are you treating at least? Or are you going to make her buy? What are you doing?
I don't
pulling-
cramp. You know I don't cramp. You could play the whole game, but you know I don't cramp.
I thought you might be pulling a Pete. Like all of a sudden you got to get up and go to the bathroom when the oh, hold on, I'm right back. I got to go to the bathroom.
Oh, wait.
There he goes.
That happened in Naples.
Mm.
At breakfast that one morning, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How's he doing over there in the gun shop?
I got to call him. I haven't talked to him in a little bit. Hope he's doing well. You know, maybe he found his little stride in life. You know,
The
his little
slide
mix.
with the 17.
He did that in
the 14 and the, what?
where did he do that? In Long Island he did that?
Yeah, Huntington. Pete's Gun
Huntington.
Shop. I forget the name of it right now. It'll come to
Man,
me.
somebody had I mentioned it to somebody who was asking about him, and they were saying how's the guns, they're pretty strict up there by you guys, and he's wondering how those gun sales are going to be for somebody. So,
I think it's going to be good, seeing that the world is going to hell in a handbasket. That people are looking to get firearms, you know?
Yeah. I guess.
I'm going to buy a gun from him. I mean, I have a license, but I'm going to buy some ammo from him. You know, so when the apocalypse
Can't you get me under the umbrella of the KD Communications? Like I'm picking up money for you or something?
you
know
still
what I
got to
mean?
fill out the application. I could
Put me to the front of the line. You know what I mean?
maybe, you know.
All right. We'll
We can
talk.
do that.
Yeah, for sure.
God,
Yeah,
I know
what?
a guy. I got a guy.
You
Yep.
got a guy? I think I have a few guys.
So we got a new segment tonight. It's called. Ready? Give me a little music, Cons.
Oh, let me see what I got.
Introduction music. What do you got?
Let me see. Give me a second here. I have
Can't be good.
now.
Yeah. What would Roofy do?
What's it called?
What would Roofy do?
Oh, boy.
All right. So here's what I.
Why
do.
is it always me? What about
What do you
Gonzo?
What do you mean? What's up? I'm enough of a punching bag. We got to deflect. We got to deflect to that guy up there.
Here's the story. As I'm losing my voice here, you might be lucky. So anyway, my son, my second to youngest son, Lucas, has been coming to the gym with me like a madman. You know, he was a little
Oh,
on the chubby side, but he's slimming down now. He's loves it. Pushes me in the gym. He's only 13. I'll be ready to put the weight down. He'll go, no, 2 more. You're not putting it down. So he's an animal in the gym. But the other day we go to the gym to do legs, and I see he's not paying attention. He's like off in La La Land. I don't know what he's doing.
we know what he's doing.
I'm doing my set, and I'm getting stuck, and he's not even looking, bro. He's not even spotting me. He's looking over here. He's looking over there. I'm putting the weights on. I'm taking the weights off. He's doing his set. He's looking at his hand. He's looking at his phone. I said to him, hey, dude, you want to go home? We don't have to work out today. If you're not into it, let's go home. No, Dad, I'm into it. All right. So we're squatting, and he goes to, take the weight off, and it falls on the floor. I go, hey, dude, you're not paying attention. This is serious stuff. You can get hurt in the gym very easily. So if you're not going to pay attention, we're going to go to fuck home. With that, we go to do the leg press, and he's standing there again, looking off into space. And I go, are you going to put the weights on? Or am I going to put all the weights on and off?
There a girl in high tights over there or
I
something?
don't know
What's
what
going
he's
on?
doing.
Uh-huh.
Sure enough, he's loading it up for me. He's not looking. He pulls off the 45. He drops it right on his fucking toe.
No.
Right on his toe, bro, from about 4 feet on his fucking toe.
Oh,
Oh, my God.
So at that point, I fucking.
You know what I would say?
I didn't even say.
His toe says, "Hey, fellas."
I said, "Do me a favor, get away from me now." The kid's got fucking tears coming down his eyes. So at that point, what would Ruffy do? I was so mad at the kid because I told him like 5 fucking times, "This is serious business." He drops on his toe. I felt bad because now you can see he took off the sock and it's bleeding right through his sock because he fucking smashed his big toe. So do you fucking teach him a lesson and walk away? Because that's what I did. I couldn't fucking people looking at me like I'm the worst father in the world because I'm like, get away from me. Get away. I don't want to talk to you right now. Go over there and cry in the corner. I said, go cry in the corner.
I know what I think. I kind of listen when I'm 55 and I had, and, you know, that's a different story from when I'm not in the young kid game anymore. Right. So, but I still have that feeling like you want to teach them a lesson all the time. Right.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I didn't have any patience. Seemed like I didn't have any patience. I'm having a little more patience. So I think I would be a little bit, but I think you'd still have to do what you did almost. You have to do it. Like it wasn't like you told him one time. You told him like 5 times.
I told him like 5 times, dude, this is serious business. You can get hurt in here. And sure enough, bam, wah!
Is that the guy who wants to come hunting?
Yeah.
Because he was looking at that, wasn't he? He was like,
now again, if he was looking at that, you might give him a high five or something, you know. But
I would.
If he's like looking at dandelions or something, then you got to
Mr. George, how much you pay for the new guy?
Yeah. So what I did, I walked away, and then when I got myself in composure, I said, "Come here." I said, "Let's go in the corner." I said, I put his head. I said, "You can cry for like 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds. Get it all out." I can hear this. I can hear this. You know, I'm like, yes. And then he picked his head up. He wiped it off, and he went back into the machine to do his set. So
what happened to his toe?
What? It's fucked. He's gonna lose his toe. He's gonna lose his toenail.
Okay, toenail. I was gonna say
not lose his toe. He's gonna lose his toenail. Yeah,
dude, that's not a 10-pound weight. That's a
45-pound fucking weight, dude.
Wow.
Damn. Yep, right on his toe.
That's when they really get hurt. Like you wanted to teach them a lesson, but like if they really get hurt,
that's why I felt bad. I'm like, that had to fucking hurt like a mother, bro. And he took his shoe off, and I could see the blood coming through his sock. And I said, it
is amazing how they can't. I guess we were all the same way, right? You can't keep concentration for like 5 seconds, right? Like just to take a weight off and put it on the rack.
Yeah. Yep.
Today's day and age in the gym.
I told him, like, I swear to God, and those words came out of my mouth. Hey, this is serious shit. You get really hurt. You get hurt really bad in the gym. Boom. Right on his toe, bro. So,
well, you want to talk about getting hurt. If he wants to come hunting, you can get hurt a lot.
Hell yeah. You got a gun there. Yeah.
You got a gun. You got a bow. You got razor blades. You can
such a good kid.
Climb in a tree stand. You're going to be 20 feet in the air.
Oh, yeah. Later on, he's such a good kid. Later on, he tells me, "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't man up quick enough. I'm really sorry." I'm like, "Dude, don't worry. You did good. You're fine. You know?
You done good, kid."
Yeah.
Is it what Patty Lee wrote?
No, let me go back over there.
Can you imagine it?
Oh man!
Can you imagine it? The patient I had with these bozos.
Like, threw his can down the hallway for crying out loud, you know?
Hey, give me a can, kid. Oh my God! There's no crying in the gym.
That'll be like me taking the kid's shoe and throwing it across the gym. You know, he gave me his shoe, now I threw it across the gym.
When you trusted him, right? There was trust there.
Yeah,
he trusted you.
He did, yeah.
That's some of a bitch.
All right, guys, let's get to our new commercial. We got a new commercial, so you guys don't got to hear the same goddamn commercial.
We do.
Nice. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. All right, we're going to hear from Vince.
Roll it.
Here we go.
Armor-Tough Firehouse flooring was recently installed in Station Number 7, the newest of the DeKalb County fire stations in Decatur, Georgia. Meeting Deputy Chief Smith of Support Services, Vince explained that Armor-Tough interlocking flooring is the only floor that is tough enough to withstand the abuse of fire apparatus, along with fire personnel at a very busy station. Chief Smith explained, "The flooring in all of our stations over the years gave us multiple problems. We need a floor that can last as long as the walls and the roof. That's why we chose Armor-Tough. The installation team came from New Jersey, and in 3 days, they had completed their work without any disruption to our daily operations. We were very impressed with not only the product, but with the workmanship as well. I highly recommend Armor-Tough for your station's floor. Call Vince today for a no-obligation quote at 908-917-7697.
Beautiful.
Very
There
nice.
you go, Vince. Great job.
Man, bam. Quick.
We're gonna
right
see
to
him
it.
at Long Island show. He'll be there. Which reminds me, you got to come out and see me and Ruffy the 2nd and 3rd of February. I have to look up the booth. I forget what the booth number is. We'll be out at the Long Island Trade Show at the Nassau Coliseum, 2nd and 3rd
3
of
and
February.
4. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Right. Yep. Come out and see my son
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
limping around. He'll be out there with his bad toe, limping around in the booth. So come out and see
Call
him.
him Gimp. His nickname is Gimp.
Yeah. I'll call him Gimpy now. Yeah.
Well, maybe you got something in common.
Oh,
You got-
Procaccini's coming.
yeah, you got the bum knee. He's got the bum toe.
Bring the old lady.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, them. Bring your old ladies. Yeah. Oh, Procaccini, bring your old lady. Why don't you stay your old lady and you stay home? How about that? She can hang out in the booth with us.
You don't have it on here.
What?
I was trying to look for the booth for you. You sent me the.
I have it. I'll find it somewhere.
140 something, I think.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
All right.
ready?
Bring this guy in.
All right, you guys
guy.
ready?
Let's
All right,
do
coming
this.
to the stage. FDNY Captain Russell Vomero.
Whoa! There it is.
What's up, Cap?
There he is.
You doing, guys?
Can I call you Russ?
Yeah. Actually, the guys used to some guys called me Rusty, which is fine too. Rusty, you know.
That's what we
I was
call
speaking-
Gonzo.
Rusty trombone.
Yeah.
No.
It was everybody had, you know.
Doesn't he look like Jack Nicholson a little bit?
Yeah.
It does. Give me a
Anybody
little.
ever tell you that?
If you know, tell you to bury him in the marsh,
You
you
want
bury
me
him in
on
the
that
marsh.
You want me on that wall.
Wendy, I don't want to hurt you. I just want to bash your brains in.
Give me the bat. Give me the bat. Give me the bat, Wendy.
Here's Johnny
All right, let's get patriotic before we get lost in the sauce over here.
in the weeds. Here we go.
What now?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Speaking of Pete, there's his velvet voice. The remnants
Have
of
a good
Pete
voice.
on the show.
Yes.
Yep. That's it. No more commercials. We're done, right? We get right into the captain's career.
Finished.
Finito. All right, Cap, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know if I've got if I ever got a job timeline as have we got one 4 pages long? This guy is seeing it.
We've had, but the captain was very. When I
Very
first talked to him,
detailed.
he's very thorough.
A
Very
thorough guy. Yep.
Very thorough. Didn't leave anything to chance.
No.
Hey,
Well,
I want to. I had a great career, so I want to be able to express that.
We're gonna
Yeah.
have to squish it down, Cap, into 2 hours. You know.
Oh yeah, I'll do my best. You know, whatever you don't have, you know, we'll leave on the cutting room floor.
all right, you didn't put nothing about your early days. So give us a little about the early days, where you grew up, your
I grew
family
up on-
life, what made you want to be a fireman.
I grew up on Staten Island. I didn't want to be a fireman. As a matter of fact, my uncle signed me up for the test in like it would have been, I guess, the 74 test or something like that. I don't even know. I never took it. And then I became a union carpenter, and you know, I worked with a lot of tough guys, but it was a hard job. We were working on things like sewage treatment plants, schools, you know, heavy concrete jobs. And I said, I can't do this. I just can't do this. And it wasn't always steady. So I said, okay, you know what? I need to find something. So I decided to try to take the fire department test. And I did terrible on the written. I mean, compared to everybody else was getting 98s, 99s, and I got a 92. So I'm like, I'm not getting on this job. But back then, the physical was 50% of your score. So if you did good on the physical, so I worked my butt off to get good at the physical. Charlie Driscoll, whose son was also taking the test, he set up a practice place on Staten Island. And that's where we went whenever it was open.
So nobody in your family was on the job? Cap,
My
at all?
uncle was on a job, and the
He was.
only real memory I have, because you know he was my uncle, is going to the firehouse once or twice when he lived on Staten Island. And back in the 60s, when I was about 10 years old, he was in ladder 1, And,
Wow.
during the year, they first got the tower ladder, but they had a job downtown Broadway, like all the way down between Broadway and Trinity. And he was building a house in Staten Island, and he wanted some lights from this building. So he took me into the city after the fire, and the lights he wants are across this collapsed floor area. So he puts me on his back, and he says, we're going to walk across this beam. Well, to me, at 10 years old, it seemed like an endless cavern that I was going to fall into. And, it's just, those were the only two real experiences I had of firefighters.
What was Staten Island like back then?
Staten Island
like
was,
the country, right?
Yeah. They had a little airport out on where the Staten Island Mall is now. Then they had a farmer's market there type of thing. It was, of course, always the dump. There was always the landfill on Staten Island.
It was always even back then.
Well, they had it at the other side. It wasn't the Brookfield landfill. It was something that off of Arthur Kill Road.
Right.
But, it was a lot of woods, lots of woods to grow up in.
You have a big family? How many brothers and sisters?
I only had 2 brothers.
Uh-huh.
But back then, my cousins all lived 2 blocks from me, and stuff like that. So
they all into cement work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cement shoes.
Yep.
Actually, though, my uncle, who was Italian, his wife was very Irish, Mickey Finn.
Oh, there you go.
Really? She lasts long in the family. They throw her out.
They were cement shoes.
They had the what year did they build the Verrazano? What year was that?
It was like 64. I remember my parents had just gotten divorced, and my father, used to have us on the weekends, and that's where it'd take us. We'd go down Fort Wadsworth on Staten Island, and we'd sit there and watch the progress of the bridge,
Right.
And yeah, it was about 64.
So your brothers never became firemen, right? Only you?
No.
All right.
My older brother was somewhat of a, like a West Coast guy, and my younger brother, he was moved to Ireland and.
Italian and Ireland. Look at that. So you get list number 12, not for not doing so well in the written, list number 1274, and you got on in the 5th class, which is July of 79, right?
Right.
And who was in your Proby class at the time?
Well, Mike Davis was in the Proby class. Bob Gallione was in the Proby class.
That little guy, Mike Davis, little Mike Davis.
Little Mike Davis. I have a story about Mike Davis. I sometimes think I helped him get to Rescue 3, but I don't know for sure.
We'll take that credit.
We'll go with it.
Why let the truth get in the way of the
story anyway?
I mean, I'll tell it now if you want.
Go ahead. Why not?
Okay, so Teaser was the captain of 3, and I was the captain of 41. And we found ourselves sitting on a curb somewhere. I don't know if it was after a job or after a drill or something. And the subject came up of what you look for in a guy looking to come over. Now, you'll see it later in my timeline that I had been in the 5th Division. So I had met Mike in 34 truck, I think he was in. And he always expressed that he wanted to go to the rescue. So I told Ralph, I said, I always look for a guy who's motivated. I don't care. I can train him. The fire will come with experience, and I could train everybody. We all had to learn this technical stuff. And, it's not like we all came in here knowing it. So, and next thing I know, Mike was in Rescue 3. So I like to think that I had some influence.
Did he buy you something? Did he give you a bottle of whiskey or something?
I don't think I ever mentioned it to him.
He just did.
That's how you do it.
He's always the short guy.
Yeah, we did it.
Short
He
guy.
was a good guy. Mike
Just
was
said that
a
shit
good
right
guy, and he turned out to be a home run up there.
He was there a
Turned
long
out to be a
time.
home run for Sock.
Yeah, he was.
Absolutely.
Until Mike Smithwick lifted him up by the throat at a party, allegedly. All right, let's go back to Proby school. So who else was in your Proby class?
Like I said, there was Mike Davis, there was myself, Bob Gallione, there was Danny McDonough. If you know Danny, he was Mad Dog McDonough. He did the rescue school for a while. Actually, he got hurt at the rescue school, and that's where he went out on 3/4. They were lifting some concrete. It fell on his leg.
You don't get the name Mad Dog too lightly, I don't think.
No, they don't hand that out like candy. You know, you
Mad Dog 2020,
you
right?
gotta earn the name Mad Dog, bro.
Gonzo, you got any mad dogs in your department?
No.
So
He's got,
those are the four that I
angry
know. I mean, if you
faces
look
down
at
there.
the photo of my squad, which Gonzo has, you'll see right about in the middle last row, you'll see Galleon. Probably closer to the right side in the last row.
I see him.
I don't see him. Which side? Right?
Yeah.
Closer to the right side in the last row.
I don't even see him. I can't. I'm blind as a bat. So
Yeah.
The tall guy that's right in the middle there, right to the right of him.
Yeah, there's like two tall. Bob is on one side. There's a guy with blonde hair in the middle, and then I can't remember that guy's name. Is on the other side of him.
that's Bobby Galleon. Holy shit!
That's Bob Galleon.
That's a small class, Cap.
That was just our squad.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, that was just our squad. And this guy, the guy sitting down all the way to the left, I think it was him. One of them used to carry around a riding twitch, and he'd smack you if you screwed up. You know.
Well, you couldn't get away with that today, bro.
Oh no. Well, he didn't. Somebody did complain eventually.
Yeah. Oh man, he wasn't. I know who didn't complain. Mad Dog. That guy didn't complain, bro.
Oh shit! Well, look at that little helicopter.
Yeah, I think we had 100 and something in the class. It was a super hot. Guys were dropping like flies, and they used to make us have races raising the 35 portable by ourselves, butted against the wall, and we'd have to shoulder it up. And one guy dislocated his shoulder. And it was like guys were dropping like flies.
I want to separate the men from the boys. You know?
Yeah, I guess
that's how you weed them out. You can't do that anymore. So in August of '79, you get assigned to Engine 10 down on Water Street. I guess you didn't know anybody in
what's surprising is you know, I think I know the reason now, but what was surprising to me, everybody told me, oh, well, if you're in the graduation, and I was the clown in the graduation, they said, oh, they'll ask you if you have any preferences. Everybody was talking where they were going. I was really naive. I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't know where 10 engine was to 23 engine to 232, or whatever. I had no idea what was going on. So I go down to 10 engine. I think the picture that that in Proby school, when I was in Proby school, I have my uncle, I said, was previously on a job. And when I retired, I showed him my captain's ID. And he says, oh, that was my badge when I was a captain. And I said, I realized at that point, he said, I called the badge desk when you got promoted, and I got you my badge number.
That's cool.
And I realized that he probably got me a 10. He was a fireman in one truck.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
And at the time, you know, I had a car that had a hole in the floor. And, you know, it was he probably figured 10 engine. I hop on the train, hop on the ferry, and I was right there. It was like half a mile, quarter of a mile up from the ferry terminal.
Right. Now you said they weren't in with 10 and 10. There was no
they were
truck,
10
right?
and ladder 15. It was a firehouse that faced Water Street.
But
most of the guys there were all guys from busy companies, Lower East Side, Harlem, that were kind of in semi-retirement. Well, that was when later on, when we moved to 10.
That's when 10 and 10 went in.
Which you'll see there's no 10 for ladder.
Yeah, that's like I'm just trying to make a better image of it.
That's when they moved across the street from the Trade Center on Liberty?
Yeah, that was 1980.
But there was no 10 truck yet.
No 10 truck.
When did they put 10 truck in there? What year?
I don't even know, because I only stayed there. Total, I was in 10 engine for 2 years. What got me out of 10 engine was that move, because I decided that this wasn't the place I wanted to be, because we're coming back from a run, and we have 6 men. So I'm riding up front with the chauffeur and the captain, and they're just bullshitting back and forth. And we get called to a second alarm, and they did absolutely nothing. They kept on bullshitting back and forth, stopping for red lights, you know. And I said, I got to get out of this place.
It's not the place for me.
It was like nothing happened at all. So I had no fires. You know, back then there was no residential downtown, you know, so to speak. So
right.
So what happened was headquarters was still on Broadway. And the chiefs used to come in. There was the third floor of 10 engines quarters was supposedly set up for the chief who was on overnight work job, citywide tour command or whatever the case may be. And so they'd come over once in a while. The chief would go up there, do something. And senior guys said, "Oh, make sure you take care of the chief's car." So I'd wash the car, I'd fill it up with gas. And sometimes I talk to the aides, and sometimes the aide says, "Well, what do you got an idea for your future? What are you going to do in the job?" And at the time, there was a borough commander that once he had you in Manhattan, he wasn't letting you out. So I put in for those companies in Brooklyn. I was surprised. Everybody said, "You're not getting out of Manhattan. You're just not." And I did. I mean, it wasn't my first choice, but I, got out of there.
Most of the time, those, like you were saying, those older guys, they had already worked, right? 11.
Oh yeah.
Truck, right? So for them, that's the spot, right? They're kind of going out to pasture. Did anybody there say, "Hey, kid, you got to get out of here"?
I can't say they definitely did. Nobody encouraged me.
Right.
I had very little encouragement at the beginning. So there was 2 other Probies there. One of them ended up I don't think he ever became a staff chief, but this guy, Richie Howe, he became a deputy.
Uh-huh.
So that was that, I mean, I had 2 occupied building fires, and one of them was while we relocated on New Year's Eve, and it was along the waterfront. I think we were in a 16 engine, a 21 engine or something, and the lieutenant goes inside the building, and it's a dumpster inside the, garbage room or whatever, and he has a stretch the booster line. Well, Vinny Dunn shows up and reams him a new asshole. You don't stretch the booster line in an occupied building and all this stuff. But that was it for fire duty.
Wow. Yeah, because, you're across the street from the Trade Center, there's not much else down there at the time, bro. And on the weekends and at night, there ain't nothing going on down there.
No, and actually the firehouse, the World Trade Center wanted the firehouse inside the World Trade Center.
I didn't know that, really?
Yeah. They wanted it inside, and the job said, "No, we're not putting the firehouse inside the World Trade Center."
Holy shit. I didn't know that.
So,
I mean, now those guys, they're running around all over the place, right?
Well, there's a lot of residential down there now and stuff like that.
They got all the alarms.
I will tell you one story. One fire I did have, we were third due, and that was the first time I met Joe Angelini. He had just left one truck, and it was like on one of those streets from Broadway to West Street, Reed, or one of them streets, Leonard, or one of those streets there. And he was in Rescue 1. First time I ever saw a rescue at work. And he's cutting the floor of the first floor to provide ventilation to the basement. And the guys from Ladder 1 were busting his chops. "Oh, look at the big rescue guy. Look at the big," Joe was like, not who you people know.
Yeah, everybody knows him as now, right?
Yeah, he was just another fireman.
That's funny.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you get over to, where'd you go? 149 truck, Castle on the Hill in 81, right? So they must have been doing some work over there.
Oh, yeah, we cut some work. I cut my first roof there. I made my first grab, and that grab ended up with the FU rescue story for me, because after the fire was over, I had gone in the floor above the fire, and I grabbed the baby out of the crib. And the chief said, "Rescue was up there first. I'm giving any meritorious acts to rescue." So my boss was kind of cool. He says, "I'll fight for you. You want me to go to the chief and tell him I'm putting you in anyway?" And I said, "No, I know what I did. I was just ecstatic that I did something, so I didn't want to,
crazy.
block any."
You saved a baby out of a crib, for God's sakes. It's like,
yeah, well,
Gonzo would be writing his, forget about it. Holy shit.
Gonzo putting himself in for that problem.
I was always
I just did. I just finished the typed it up right now.
You off, I'm off. Yeah. You're metal, I'm metal. Yeah.
So that was, I cut my first roof, and I remember a guy from 114 comes over, I was naive. I knew nothing. And he says, "Good job, kid." And I'm like beaming with pride, This guy from 114 comes over to me and says, "Good job, kid." And, he had his ear flaps down. So when I started walking away, I put my ear flaps down. I wanted to emulate this guy. And I'm like, man,
Well, what were they? Were they tower ladder, sticks? What were they?
They were tower.
Tower, 149? Who were some of the guys there, the senior guys that really kind of helped you out?
Well, another situation. There was a guy named John Fusco. He was in, I don't, huh?
Oh, not Tony Fusco. John.
No, not Tony. Right, there was another guy, Pete Dondero, spent a lot of years in 26 truck. There was a bunch of guys that were senior guys. And, 149 is on a very residential street. I mean, there's residences on both sides. Matter of fact, one of the guys who was the chauffeur lived across the street. So
tough commute. Awesome. Holy shit. Roll out of bed, grab a cup of coffee.
I worked on City Island one time, and this guy lived across the street, used to go home for lunch and dinner at home.
Yeah.
City Island basically back then didn't run because, they were there only for the purpose of the summer. In the winter, they didn't do anything.
They didn't do much either. So,
the reason they were put there is because the bridge gets so blacked up in the summer.
Yeah,
they had to have that fire protection there in the summer when all those people were there.
What kind of buildings did I have there around 149 besides residential?
It's mostly residential, some multiple dwellings. You get up, like in the 90s over by 242.
Who was the bosses there? You remember?
Well, Steve King was the boss that I most remember because Steve really gave great drills. They were, first time I ever felt like I was really learning something. Steve would go on to become a chief of safety. So I'd see him a lot over the years when, because I worked a lot at, in the rescue squad. So, I'd run across him because he'd respond as the safety battalion.
Right.
He was a big influence on me back then.
Right. So this is like 1981 you're talking, right?
Right.
What were the other trucks that you were running in with 149? I can't figure out where they were.
What is it? 172, 168, 109.
All right. 114 Tally Ho.
Yeah, not so much them. 148. Those were the trucks. 247 was the engine closest to us. They were a single house. 242 was in with the division.
Yeah, what was your commute like from Staten Island?
Staten Island was nothing. It's right across the. The only thing bad about it, as far as was they had an open tower ladder. Meaning there was just a little thing you set your ass on when you were in the back, and we did a lot of runs over the Verrazano Bridge, and it was cold.
Yeah, man.
Going across that Verrazano. When the alarm came in for
man.
An accident on the Verrazano Bridge, I'd be cursing, and guys would say, "Shut up!" I said, "This is bullshit."
They do. You do a lot of. What year was that? 80. Did all the truck companies have Hearst tools back then, or only?
No,
they didn't. Right?
They didn't.
And you said Rescue 5 wasn't there yet. We'll get into that next.
No, Rescue 5 wasn't started yet.
Although you did say, right, that I didn't know this. Did you know that Rescue 5, what year were they created? And then they got disbanded?
1948 they were created, I think. In 1962 they were disbanded.
Did you know that, Ruffy?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. He's going to send me that rescue document.
Yeah, they had been a rescue. And it had a lot to do, the rescue, by politics and stuff back, to form the rescue.
Right. So this is what happens. They decide to form the rescue again, right?
Right.
And tell us that, how...
Well, they decide to form the rescue again, and I wanted to go. I wanted to work. I just wanted to work. I had worked in construction, and I found firefighting. Firefighting, the basics of firefighting is just manual labor. There's things you do under duress and under shit hitting the fan. But overhaul and breaking windows, it's just construction in reverse.
Yeah.
So it is
demolition.
Exactly right.
Demolition.
Exactly right.
And so but I wanted to work. I didn't like sitting around the firehouse. Guys were still drinking back then, and it created bad habits. I'd have a drink in a firehouse, and not to say that I think anybody was wrong for doing it or anything, but it's just not what I wanted. So I said, I'm going to put in for Rescue 5. And everybody said, you're not getting Rescue 5. You got 5 years on the job. Just so happens that my uncle had been a head tax assessor on Staten Island, and for a number of years. So he had a lot of political weight. So he talked to the borough president, Tony Gator, and Tony Gator wrote a glowing recommendation. Never sent a letter. I wish I'd kept the letter because I got a copy of it. I wish. And how could they refuse? The borough president of the new rescue company is asking for this guy. And, what are we going to do? And as a aside to that story, and this was told to me years later by the borough president when I ran into him, Charlie Driscoll wasn't supposed to get Rescue 5. A guy named Captain Vomero, he was the captain of 252, was supposed to get Rescue 5. And this is being told to me by the borough president. Charlie Driscoll comes to see the borough president saying, I want to get into Rescue 5. So borough president listens to him. Somebody tells this guy, Vomero, you better go see the borough president, because Driscoll did, you better go. Now, Vomero's already downtown setting up the company. He's got the spot. So he goes to see the borough president, and he tells the borough president, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. I already got the spot. There's nothing you could do about it. I got the spot, and that's it. Well, he didn't get the spot.
That's not how you do that.
Yeah, that's not.
That was a stupid move on his
frowned upon.
Huh?
Is that frowned upon?
No.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You'll never get me out of that spot.
Yeah. Listen here. This is my spot, borough commander. I mean,
borough president.
Borough president. There's nothing you can do about it. Oh yeah.
How many times in our careers have you heard somebody was getting a spot and then gets bounced at like the last second, right?
Yeah.
How many times has that happened?
Especially when you go down to
Countless
the
times.
president, you tell him it's your spot. So
yeah,
there were guys that were UFO for years at a spot and got bounced out.
I'm getting the spot.
Right?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
That's crazy.
So when you go there with 5 years on, and guys are like, "How the fuck did you get here?"
Right. Although I will say this, there were other guys there that didn't have much more time than me. Neil Fredrickson. There was a couple of guys that were still young guys. Like they didn't have a lot of time.
Who were some of the guys that were there as the charter members?
As charter members, there was Gus Tripoli, who was in Squad 1. Dave Rochelle was in Rescue 3. Of course, Cassani was one officer. Pritchett was the second officer. And a guy named Vinnie Romeo, who was a lieutenant in 28 Engine, was the third officer. Driscoll was the captain. John Kiernan was there. And then there was a bunch of guys from Staten Island, but they had all worked other places.
Right. Just those officers alone. I mean,
I learned so much there. I mean, and at the time, everybody thought I didn't deserve to be there. Like I remember we're building the workbench, and Cassani, we have 2 pieces of 3/4 inch ply, and he says, "Can you cut the bottom shelves?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You better not fuck it up. I'll tell you, you're in trouble." And having been in construction, I knew what I was doing. But they were always questioning my abilities.
I was gonna say you must have thought that they would just had you under the microscope, constantly watching you, right?
Yes, exactly. So, but I was mostly in. I was mostly in Pritchett's group, but I had a job at Cassani that I learned something about searches that I would have never thought of on my own. Uh-huh. And what it was we had a fire in a private dwelling where the father had lowered everybody except one kid down, and secondaries were done, but the chief wanted us to make sure. And Cassani, we literally spent 2 hours up there scraping the floor to the floor. He says, and finally we started finding bones and remnants in the bathroom. And He taught me, like, okay, if you have somebody missing, just looking around doesn't do the job. You got to scrape it down and look at everything.
Wow.
What was it like working with Pritchett?
Pritchett, well, I think I put in my notes. Pritchett gave me courage and a heart, and he was just Pritchett was I think on a John Norman show, he talks about Cassani putting him in with the Scott 4.5 to dive in the water. Well, Pritchett actually did that, and he got in a lot of trouble for it too. But he actually did that when a car went off the pier with the young girl.
No way, did?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Another thing Pritchett did was
Would you do that?
the EMS was on slowdown.
Okay.
EMS was on slowdown, and so we get to this job, and there's a burn victim on the front porch, and nobody's taking care. Everybody's stepping over the guy. Pritchett takes him, throws him in the back of the rescue rig, and takes off to the hospital by himself. Doesn't tell anybody, doesn't tell the chief, and he got in a lot of trouble for that.
Really?
Pritchett was an actor, and him giving me courage in the heart was like a joke. I always said, well, you couldn't give me brains because you didn't have any,
Remember your first job there?
I had first, that was where he gave me courage, was the first job. It was Queen Anne, typical, define Queen Anne, the stairway from the kitchen to the maid's quarters on the third floor.
Yeah.
And fire was in the basement, and the grand piano in the living room had already started to collapse into the basement. So I get to the top of the stairs of the basement, and there's a 2.5-inch line there. So I grab it and I start to do whatever I can to get it down. Next thing you know, somebody's behind me. As it turns out, it's Pritchett. So after the fire's over, he said, I don't know who had the nozzle down in the basement, but whoever it is had balls. And I said, that was me. And he said, you got courage, kid. So.
Wow, that must feel good. Pritchett.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and then he gave me heart later for another job. So.
Well, tell us that.
It was another private dwelling, and he wanted me. He kept on saying, Vomero, get over by the stairs. Come here, come here. So he's at the bottom of the third floor stairs, and he tells me, he says, on the third floor, there's a skylight. He says, we need to take it out. So I start up. He says, no. He said, put your mask on. It's shitty up there. So I put my mask on, and we go up, and it's one of the skylights that not like the glass ones. It's like a plastic dome. And he wouldn't let me stand because he said, no, don't stand. It's too hot. So I'm banging this thing like 10 or 15 times with the 6-foot hook. And it's not, my arms are starting to feel rubber. And all of a sudden it breaks. And he said, you got hot, kid. And then whenever I saw him after that, he'd tell somebody, yeah, I gave that guy heart and courage. And I said, yeah, but he didn't give me brains,
Well, sounds like the Wizard of Oz.
You fucking beat me too.
That's the Wizard of Oz. Follow the yellow brick road.
I worked in 255 when he was working in 157. And we get a run, and turns out to be nothing. So he reports into the chief. Tonight, too, Chief. Chief says, I call us in apartment 2A. He doesn't move. And I said, Jack, you're not going up. Next thing you know, yeah, it's a 9-2, Chief. Never went upstairs to check. That's who he was. Jack was a great guy. I just loved working with him. And, I had a lot of fun with him. He was a fun guy, too. It wasn't like, he was a fun guy. And Cassani taught me so much about, what you got to take care of for tools. You got to be ready to do your job when you need to. Need to know what tools you have and everything else.
You still talk to Pritchett at all?
No, I don't.
That's you and me both, because I've been trying to get him on the show forever.
Oh, he'd be tough to get on the show.
Oh, my God. At one time, he told me he would do it, right, Ruff? You were standing there.
We thought, like, holy mackerel, he was going to do it.
He picked up the phone. I've been calling this guy. He picks up the phone. He goes, hey, Kev, what can I do for you? I go, I'd like to get you on the show. He goes, all right, no problem. Call me back next month. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. And he picked up the phone.
Hoobs was like Charlie Brown running to kick the football. And
I swear to God.
Pritchett pulled the ball right out from underneath him.
Yeah, well, I could see Zach being a tough time to get hold of.
Yeah.
Hey, Cap, I want to ask you. Okay.
No, yeah.
All right. Kevin and I were charter members at 288, and we were setting like the quote unquote, not that we were, but we were following the standards set by the officers, right? And we tried to build a tradition. Did you feel like you guys were doing the same thing there, like when you guys first started up over there again?
Yeah, I think so. And, just the fact, that all of a sudden we're an extra company in the area, I'm sure you experienced similar things. So that's problematic.
It's a big love fest. They love it.
I'm sure. I mean, even when Rescue 3, I was UFO in Rescue 3 when they moved into the Bronx. I screwed up, got kicked out of the UFO spot, but that's a story. But anyway, they didn't like us there. Truck companies hated us being in the Bronx now.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'm sure Rescue 2 didn't love you because they used to go to the Staten Island, didn't they? Didn't they go over to Brick?
Well, yes, and Pritchett and Downey would always bat heads. I remember one incident we go to Downey. We were always fighting, and we busted Driscoll's chops over the whole, why aren't we responding? We respond to accidents on the Verrazano Bridge, but if it's in Brooklyn, we don't go. It's like 2 minutes more away. So we responded to an accident on Coney Island, and we end up extricating the person out of the car. And by this time, Rescue 2 shows up. And Downey says to Pritchett, he says, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Pritchett says, "Getting the guy out." So they were always batting heads.
Well, now they got boxes. They have boxes in Brooklyn now, don't they, Roof?
Oh, yeah. They go pretty far into Brooklyn.
Yeah, they have for fire, too. They have
I'm just saying, Rescue 2 could never get down there.
Oh, no, nowhere near as quick as Rescue Squad 40. I mean,
Rescue
5.
Yeah. Nope. So then you do that. You decide to study for lieutenant.
Right. And I mean, I know Gonzo had some pictures of old school training that we had back in Rescue 5.
Oh, you want
only training. It wasn't like rescue school back then.
It was in-house training.
Huh? It was in-house training, but they sent us down to the New Jersey State Troopers to take training. And you'll see the training. If Gonzo pulls up any photos, you'll see the training, that type of training we got.
Pete, will you pull them up?
Well, not those. Those
I'm
are
going to kick your ass.
Get with the program, Pete.
Shut it.
See those pictures,
let me pull this one up. Here we go.
That was the training. Like somebody stuck on a utility pole and we had to get them down,
Where the hell was that?
That was at State Troopers Barracks in New Jersey.
Which one is you, Cap? Which one is you? Are you on this pole somewhere?
Yeah, I'm right there hanging off, like I'm, discombobulated.
You're the guy hanging right here?
I'm the victim. Let's say I'm the victim.
I'm trying to get you a little closer. This guy right here in the middle?
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
That was early with the ropes too, huh?
There was no ropes.
Right.
It was block and tackle. There was no pulley system. It's just a block and tackle. And then show them the pictures of how we packaged people back then. There was no Stokes. I think we had Stokes on the truck, but this is what they taught us.
What it looks like one
Just
of those army
stretches there. It's
an army stretcher.
Yeah.
And there's John Cannon on the left.
Which one are you?
I was just going to say that. To the right?
No. Okay. Well, maybe. Yeah. To the right. Right next to me. He's right next to me.
No. Which one are you?
I'm the one like.
He's got the devil smile right here.
The guy with hair. I had hair back then.
You and me both. Yeah.
Oh,
and that's how we package people. That we were taught anyway, and we get certificates.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Imagine coming down 20 flights with that couple of things on.
Yeah,
what are you doing with his hand right here? How you doing?
Whoop, how you doing?
Package.
Yeah. A little package check.
You're packaging his package.
You're getting it from both angles, a little breast and a little cock. I mean, whatever.
What's the matter with you?
Come on. What we got?
You're losing it.
Negative ghostwriter.
What's that old picture of?
Yeah, okay. There's in Proby School. If you look at that picture there, that's Proby School where there was my son and myself, and then I was the clown in Proby School. Like I said, everybody said, you're going to get offered a spot and stuff, but nobody offered me.
Look at that Proby picture.
Yeah, so you have that.
How old were you when you got on the job, Cap?
What's that?
How old were you when you got on the job?
27, actually.
Oh, same age as me, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete, we could have used those like when he was in Proby School.
I
Yeah,
understand.
maybe
You guys didn't go to Proby school,
maybe
but briefly.
on the Proby school part, maybe we could have used those, Pete. I mean, Gonzo.
You know
There's
what?
the department order for Rescue 5.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Oh, you mean when we started talking about Rescue 5, maybe we could put up the department order too? Well,
When you're ready for it, you guys are all over the
hey,
place.
John, could you put the department order up for when they went to
Wait,
Rescue 5?
in case you didn't hear this.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Sorry, Cap. Trying to be professional here.
Not
Getting
offended.
punching
Not
bags right
offended
here.
at all.
No, the captain has
audience.
family
Any other
watching.
pictures, like maybe from when he was a kid, you want to pull up now? I don't know. What do you want to do?
Well, the Cap asked for a picture. I'm going to tell him no.
Oh. I don't know. Maybe
The
you want
guest.
to be
It's all about the
proactive
guest.
and throw some pictures up according to the timeline. I'm just
I
saying.
was trying to.
Yeah,
That's why in the
went over this
pre-show
before you
you
guys.
talked to the
And it
captain.
goes over the
After you
pictures.
left, Coogs, me and Gonzo went over the timeline of all the pictures.
That's
Oh,
what
you
I'm
did.
saying. You go, oh, you
You
did go
did.
over the
Right.
picture.
You
Yeah,
did.
but it
So
just
you
got
kinda
kind of
figure.
long. Maybe I'm
Great.
talking
Yeah,
too
hold
much.
on a minute.
but I'm
John.
not, giving them time to show the pictures.
Oh, man. Mr. George, how about you for the new guy?
All right. Maybe you
All right,
want to
where
pull
do
up.
Imagine if he was a
Hey,
chief.
wait a minute. Maybe you want to pull up his retirement picture now. I don't know. What do you want to do?
Oh, wait a
Captain,
fucking.
Let's go right to the end. Let's go right to the
No,
end.
just some of my bitches.
Oh,
Where the hell
yeah,
are we?
man.
Studying for the
Exactly,
Senate?
because you guys were all over the joint.
Gonzo's getting lifted off the show.
We're actually at
Is that what somebody said?
And like I said, Rescue 5 was great. I spent 3 years there. I learned a tremendous amount of stuff. Guys came in. Gary Didell came in, to Rescue 5. I just met guys all the time, and it was just a great experience. And I knew that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. I didn't just want to go and be in a busy truck or engine company. I wanted to be in a rescue company. At the time, there was really only one squad, so there wasn't,
Right.
a lot there. Yeah,
Oh,
you see
another Rescue
Pritchard
5
there.
picture. Great.
There's Pritchard,
Yeah.
Driscoll. John Carroll is in the back. If you know John Carroll, he was in Rescue 1. Cassani.
A lot of mustaches.
A
Must
lot
be
of
the 80s.
stashes, man. Vouch.
Well, that guy, third from the left, right under the C of Rescue,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
John Thomas. He was married to Rochelle Jones.
Oh,
And
really?
I know Van Thomas, what was his name? What was his name the other
Van
night?
Johnson
Huh?
from
Yeah, Van
124. Van Johnson.
Van Johnson, yeah. He Rescue 2 was in with 210, and that was part of the training we went to when we formed Rescue 5, going to 210 and looking over Rescue 2's rig. I think we met them at the Rock, and they pulled everything out. But he mentioned, Van, that, John decided he was going to be a taxidermy and, started working on, doing taxidermy in the basement. And he did
him
become
right
a
there.
taxidermy.
He went to
He did.
Rescue 5.
Yeah, in Rescue 5.
Oh,
But he was in Rescue 2 for a lot of years.
okay.
Yeah, he was in Rescue 2 for a lot of years.
I don't think I ever heard of him.
Which guy is Pritchard?
Pritchard is the one standing right next to John Thomas under the E
Gotcha.
Rescue.
Wow, he's young
Maybe
there.
someday we'll see him on the show. Who knows?
And Cassani's all the way at the other side next to John Cannon.
Yep.
And there's Mike Barone, too,
Oh, Barone.
right next to Cassani.
Barone.
Barone.
Nice.
Somebody was asking in the chat about him.
There
Yeah,
you
he had to be in his 40s back then.
Ungats. That's what Barone says all the time. Ungats. All right, so you go do something silly and study and get promoted in 1987.
Right.
And you go to the 7th Battalion and in the 3rd Division. And that's where you work with guys like Paulie Soman, who we're going to have on the show in a couple of weeks. John Hopkins, who's never coming on the show. Great guy, though. And Al Turi.
Right. He
Right.
became chief of safety.
Mhm.
And then also I started to meet all the guys from Rescue 1 because Rescue 1 was housed with them at the time in Lag 21. And because, their quarters had burnt down. So, I get to know Joe Angelini better. And as it turns out, he took a liking to me because he worked with my uncle who in one truck for a while. And, Hank Millay, Ed Garrity, all those guys I started to know. But I knew I wanted back into SOC. That was what I did. And well, it wasn't SOC back then. It was Rescue Services. It was Tony Lindbergh was the officer. Mike Memlo, who had been a firefighter in Rescue 2, was the tool guy. and Ray Brown was the chief. There was 3 of them. I think they were in 176's quarters, but I can't be 100% sure.
Yeah.
And that was it, you know. And then
So that's the goal, right?
well,
And
yes.
how
And
do you make your way back to SOC then?
Well, what happened was, and I'm only going to give this timeline because there's a picture there that I want to show. But
you go with this, Gons? You got this one?
Yeah, Gonzo's got this one. But what happened then was Tony Lindbergh called me for Rescue 2 like 2 weeks before Christmas. He said, I got a spot open in Rescue 2. Now, I had only been in office for 2 months. I will say I was a little bit scared to go to Rescue 2. That was the Lion's Den. I would have much preferred, but also it would have meant that I was would have worked Christmas. And my wife had her family coming in from Arizona, and they were staying with us for Christmas. And it was like, okay, this is not going to work. You know, my family life could be hell if I work. So, and throughout my career, my wife's always been, you know, a supporter. So it wasn't like, you know, some guys I've used to ask guys in interviews when I was captain of 41, how's your wife feel about coming here? You know, because there were guys that had problems with their wives being in a rescue. But anyway,
happy wife, happy life, Cap.
Well, yeah. So I had to turn Rescue 2 down. So about 4 months go by, and I hadn't heard from Rescue Services. I called Tony Lindbergh and I said, are you ever going to use me? I'm working at 21 Engine this day. And he says, I just called. Now, back then, if you were in the 3rd Division and you accepted a UFO spot, there was a deputy chief in the 3rd Division said, hey, you accepted it as a UFO spot. You got the spot. That's it. You know, there was no questions. Don't take a UFO spot if you don't want the spot. So I'm working at 21. I called Tony Lindbergh and he says, I just called about a spot in Rescue 3, but they said they need you. So I call up the division. Vinny Dunn's working. Pile of guys into 21, you know, from 21 into the truck. We take a ride over, and Vinny Dunn was great. He said, Lieutenant, if this is what you want to do in your career, I fully support you. He says, I will not assign you a spot. Whenever they call for you, you got, you know, I'll let you go.
What a great guy, man.
Yeah, Vinny, he was. So I went to Rescue 3, and there's a picture now that comes up, which was my first job. And if you show that, Gonzo, that's actually that picture right there. And the title of that picture is Contemplating My Career Thoughts or something like that.
What am I doing?
It kind of looks like
no, that isn't why, really. What happened was, now I had known Al Ronaldson growing up. You know, I wasn't friends with him, but we lived in the same neighborhood. And we used to play touch football, his group of friends and my group of friends on his block. So I knew Al. And so I felt a little comfortable. And I also knew Sean Nelson because Sean was a friend of my brother's. And I go to this fire, and it's on Webster Avenue. Like, it had to be like next to across the street for 48 Engine. So I go to this fire, and the chief gives us the assignment of doing a secondary on the 3rd floor. Doesn't say anything else. So the whole time we're up there, he says, Rescue 3, you got a secondary? Rescue 3, you got a secondary? Kept on asking me. And I made a rookie mistake. I asked all the guys, did we do a secondary? And all of them said, yes, everything's fine. I turned to Al. I said, I don't know these guys, Al. You feel confident? And he says, yes, no problem. And he says, if they tell you it's fine, Lou. And so I said, okay, secondary's negative. Chief announces it on the department radio, and that's that. 2 minutes later, the chief comes upstairs, and he says, it's too shitty up here. Why'd you give a secondary? It's too shitty up here. So he sends me down, and that's when that picture, Harvey Eisner took that picture. Herbie and Harvey I used to confuse their names all the time. Herbie Eisner, who was a Manhattan dispatcher, and Harvey Eisner. Harvey Eisner was a photographer in Firehouse magazine, I believe. And he took that picture. And I thought for sure, well, then the chief tells me before I go down too, he says, you know, there's a kid missing. I said, well, nobody told me that. But he sends me down. He calls to the deputy and he says, whatever truck company, ladder whatever is going to repeat the secondary. So I'm sitting there thinking, this is the end of this is my first job.
I know, my God, I have a bad feeling already.
Last job as a rescue officer. This is it. As it turned out, the kid made it out on his own.
Oh, good.
Couldn't find his family, went to a neighbor's house, and everything turned out fine. So, but it was just, I learned a valuable rookie officer mistake. Don't let a chief press you into doing anything you don't feel comfortable with. Because I didn't feel comfortable giving the secondary. I didn't, but all the guys said, yeah, it's good, Cap. Oh, Lou, I keep.
What you weren't comfortable with the secondary because it was just
it was nasty up there.
It wasn't clear enough, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it wasn't clear enough for a secondary. Primary, no problem.
Primary, I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
And he was right. The chief was right. I was wrong. It worked out, no problems.
Well, you were still only a lieutenant, a short time. I mean,
I know, but it's.
Everybody
going to be the end of my rescue career, and
you know what? No harm and lesson learned, right?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened. No harm and lessons learned.
Yep. That's where we're up here. End of career. Let's see. So you start something about John Salker, Patty Brown, and myself were the only.
Those were the three. When SOC opened, those are the three of us that I remember as covering lieutenants. That were brought into SOC as covering lieutenants. There might have been a fourth guy, but I don't remember. Back then,
you had some stiff competition there, bro.
What's that?
You had some stiff competition there.
I don't know how much. Well, I had the benefit, and so did Patty. Not to say that Patty wouldn't have got it either way, but we were both covering in rescue services. So, I had an inside track, so to speak.
Right.
It was like an easy transition. Okay, you were in rescue services, and okay, we're going to transition you into SOC.
Cap, were they short on not to say any? Usually you would think they were looking for guys that had more time in rank, to come back initially, or
back then, like I said, rescue services only covered vacations. Battalions covered all openings. That's where I first met Sal.
Right.
Sal used to work as a captain in Rescue 5.
Right.
When he was in the 2-3 battalion. So I met him there. I met guys there that would just cover a couple of tours or a short medical leave or something like that. But vacations were covered. So most guys didn't want to cover in rescue services because you did alienate your division. You went into rescue services, your division couldn't use you, so it wasn't like people were knocking down doors to go to rescue services.
Well, I was just going to I got what you're saying now, because I didn't realize that back then the rescues were in the battalions, right? They were, and that becoming a boss is hard enough working in a regular company, than to have to go back into SOC, quote unquote, into rescue. That's a big.
Yeah, it was, and so most guys didn't want any part of it because you were going back to your battalion, and when they didn't have a spot in rescue services, and I thought I was pretty fortunate. I did cover a lot of good spots, and that was one of the biggest benefits of my career. I didn't work in one rescue; I worked in all 5 of them, and Squad 1 initially. So it was just a great opportunity. And
if that's where your ultimate goal wants to be, to wind up in SOC, then you're in the right place, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it was not easy because every chief that came to First National was in charge, and here was his criteria for how he was going to assign lieutenants, and it was always time in SOC. But then O'Hagan came, and Hagan was time in job. So they kept on changing the criteria.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Changing the rules on you? Come on.
Crying out loud.
They kept on moving the goalposts. And so I just plodded along. I enjoyed what I was doing. And when I wasn't working in SOC, I got to see literally the whole city. I worked from the slowest firehouses to the busiest, firehouses. I got some good first do work, second do work, and I'd come back into SOC. Who gets to work in a Marine company on the job? Very few people get to. I spent like 4 or 5 months in Marine 1. It gave me the opportunity to study for captain. In Marine 1, some of the the Marine engineers, wipers, and pilot are as dedicated as any firefighter I know. They took care of those boats. Those boats were built in the 30s in Nazi Germany. They still had, German, labels.
Really
on
do. Even
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
now it's all computer, right? I mean, I've worked in the Marine unit a few times, only covering, but
Those
they
guys
really
are
do.
dedicated.
Yeah, they
They're
really are.
dedicated guys. So I had a lot of respect. And in Marine One, before they built the new quarters, the old quarters was like this 2-story shack. And, when a big boat would go up the river, like a cruise ship or something, the shack would wave,
Nothing but the best.
Yeah, and it was just it was fun, and the city was a much different place. It's kind of seedy, back then, around anything west of Times Square. I mean, Dave
Oh,
Williams
West
from
Side
Rescue
was
One used to
shitty,
call
man.
it Westworld, Yeah, it was kind of seedy. I mean, I came down one morning early in Marine One because it was a blizzard and it just started, but it was supposed to hit heavy throughout the day. So I said, let me go down. I wasn't scheduled to work to the night tour. I said, let me go down now. I'll send the officer home. And on the way down, I mean, by the time I get down to 11th Avenue in Manhattan, it's like really coming down. And there's the streetwalkers in their hot pants walking around like still. I'm like,
Hey, they got to earn money, man. They got to pay the rent,
Break it all.
Gotta
But that's
pay
how
the rent.
seedy the city was back then,
Yeah.
It wasn't like it is now.
Gonzo's like streetwalkers? What?
As a matter of fact, one of the big changing points, I think, was there.
Got that picture, Gonzo, the streetwalker?
Fire on,
Yeah, I'm trying to find one.
42nd Street.
So you get the spot. Actually, you go UFO in Rescue 4 in '92 when Tommy Williams passed away, right?
Yes, I did. And that caused a big problem because all of a sudden, I was there for a few months. All of a sudden, a department order comes down. There was 3 openings in SOC: Rescue 1, Rescue 2, and Rescue 4. I had been there UFO. And I thought for sure I had an inside track, Been there for a few months, and Terry Hatton gets it.
The old goalpost moving
The
scenario.
old switcheroo, Roof. I thought I had the spot.
Damn it. So, whoopsie. I had worked with Terry in when he was still a fireman in Rescue 2. A lot of these guys who went on to become, I just knew him as a good firefighter in an ocean awash with good firefighters because I was working with guys in Rescue 3 like Tommy Conroy and Ray Graywin, Brian Stiles, so many guys in Rescue 1, Joe Angelini and stuff. I was working with these guys. So nobody impressed me more than the other. They were all just firemen. And, I have one in particular job that was a car accident that I remember with Terry. But, I had jobs with all of them and they all were great firefighters. And they all had some of them had some very strong personalities. I'll say that. So I was pissed at Terry. I totally pissed at Terry. For some reason, in my mind, it was all Terry's fault, and actually, in the end, just before 9/11 and the year before, Terry, and I'll explain it when we get to that point. Terry turned out to be one of the most stand-up guys I knew on the job. But, I took it out completely on him. That was his fault, and that was that.
So you go back
when you feel
then what I do, okay, this is a whole another story. I call the union, and the union says, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, what can I do? And he says, well, we can file a grievance, but I wouldn't advise that. And I said, why? He says, because you're not going to get anything out of it. All you're going to get is target on your back.
Right.
And so he says, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to file a grievance. I don't care about the target on my back. I've been working at this for a couple of years now. This is what I want, and I'm going to fight for it. So only thing I could file a grievance on was AUC 293, which was all offices openings must be published on a department order 30 days prior to the opening being filled. And that was the violation that I was able to call the city on. They never published it on a department order. They never gave me that opportunity to put in my paper and say, yeah, this guy's not getting rescued. Well, I'm throwing that in the garbage. They never gave me that opportunity. So as time went on, it was good 6-9 months. Every once in a while, the lieutenant's rep would call me and he says, what do you want to do with this? You want to continue on? And I said, yeah. He says, you're not going to get anything out of it. I said, that's all right. I want to continue on. So all of a sudden I get a call one day and they're saying, okay, they're having a hearing at headquarters. And if you still want to go through with this, you have to be there. So I go down to headquarters with my Class A's, get into this conference room, and sitting across from me on a table is Ed Seary. Now, you know Ed Seary from Rescue. Ed Seary, he posts a lot. Ed Seary he was a firefighter in Rescue 3, and he was a lieutenant in 292. I think it was 290. That's who's in with Rescue 4, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 292. And he felt, he had seniority as in rank. He had all the seniority over us, any of us, and he wanted Rescue 4. And
so he wanted it too.
Yes, he put in a grievance too. I had no idea. Now, I'm very humble, like Class A's. If my memory serves me right, he was in the civilian clothes. And they told me, here's all we can do. We can change AUC 326 to reflect openings in SOC, must be this, that, and the other thing. But that's it. And Ed Seary was not happy. He let them have it. He was all piss and vinegar. Like, no, I want Rescue 4. I want Rescue 4. Of course, he didn't get it.
So you didn't even know that he had put in as well.
No, I had no idea that he had put in a grievance as well. I had no idea.
Now you got to go.
It was just something that I felt, even though they said I wasn't going to get anything out of it, I just felt like, okay, maybe I won't, but hopefully, because I was really disappointed, and I was hoping nobody else would have to experience the same thing I felt. So I said, even if they change something in the future.
Right.
Of course, this didn't bode with me well in SOC and getting the spot,
How did you find out that Hatton got the spot?
I was called up and say, okay, you're going here tomorrow. And I said, what do you mean? I'm UFO in Rescue 4. And they said, no, Terry Hatton got the spot.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Fuck. No,
by the way, there's no Vaseline either.
Hey, listen, get your shit and go over to you're headed over to City Island. I'll see you later.
So it was not, not one of my best experiences.
I don't know how many times I've heard that where a guy was UFO and somebody came out of the woodwork from wherever, whether it's from the Rock or from it's countless times, times.
Somebody had told me, and this may be totally false, but somebody had told me that Terry's father was a big chief on the job.
He was a staff chief, and his girlfriend was the mayor's secretary.
Who was the commissioner at the time. Somebody told me that Rivera used to hold Terry on his lap when he was a little baby.
Oh my God!
And there was nothing that was going to ever happen to Terry. Something to that effect. That may be totally untrue, but that's what somebody told me.
I'll tell you right now, if I would have known that information before the grievance call, I would have said, yeah, all right. Where am I going?
Yeah. They're like, hey,
once you got a baby on your lap.
Captain Vomero, here's your hat. What's your hurry? I'll see you later.
Once you got the kid on your lap, you can forget it.
So that's where I've stood. And, I plodded along. I remember going to see Sonny Cataldo at Squad 1. And the first time I had worked in Squad 1, I had asked guys how you operate because I had only worked in the rescues. I hadn't worked in the squad. I just wanted to verify that. Well, they took that. Whoever I told, took that as an offense, that I was thinking of them less than the rescue. So I go to see Sonny, and that's the first thing he brings up, So you don't think the squad is as good as the rescues?
Oh, boy.
So much for that spot. Then I went to see
dropping like flies, Coob.
Yeah.
Then I went to see Marty Mateague in Rescue 4, and he wanted nothing to do with me. I could tell that immediately. So the third spot was Charlie Casper, and something happened with Charlie while I was covering in Rescue 5 one day as a lieutenant, and he was in 13 David. I will say first, I had met Charlie with my first year in the job. It was a thing that I thought for sure I'm getting fired over. It was the end of October, the day of the New York City Marathon in 1980. Charlie was a big runner. And ladder one had gotten their regular rig back, and the spare had to go back to the shops. So Charlie was going to drive out to the shops, and I was going to follow him. I was an extra man in the battalion, and there was no, out of battalion details. If there was extra in the battalion, you stayed there. So I followed Charlie over to the shops in the Suburban. We dropped the rig off. He gets in the driver's seat, lights and siren, weaving in and out of traffic into the city. I'm thinking, we're going to get into an accident. This is my career. I had 15 months in the job. I'm still a scared little pup. I had no idea what I'm doing. And we get to the Central Park. Park the car in a hydrant. I'm saying, okay, I'm responsible for this car. I'm in trouble here. We run over. We see Greta Waits come over across the finish line. Charlie's really happy. We go back to quarters. Well, then years later, I'm working in Rescue 5, and he comes to Rescue 5. And this was common. He said, he comes to Rescue 5 in 13 David. And he suggests that maybe I leave SOC. Everybody was saying, you're never going to get a spot. I think there was guys laughing at me. That's the way I felt anyway. And he says, you're never going to get a spot. So I go down to the kitchen after he leaves. And I said, who the fuck is this guy to come and tell me I got to leave SOC? I said, the only way I'm leaving SOC is if they tell me they're kicking me out, which would have been hard because I was assigned, or I ever felt the guys didn't enjoy working with me. But I always felt that everybody enjoyed working with me, so I wasn't leaving. Now I go to see Charlie at Rescue 1 to get an open spot. What do you think the first thing he brings up? Well, who the fuck am I guess, to give you a spot? Like somebody told him that I went down into the kitchen and said,
oh, no.
This guy, ask, so that was that.
I don't think I've ever heard that, though. I don't think I've ever heard well, it was a captain at the time, right? In Car 13 David, right?
Right.
Right. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say to another guy, you should just leave SOC because you're not going to get a spot.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
I don't think I've ever fucking heard that in my life.
Right. It was just a lot of political stuff going on. I'm not saying, but I was enjoying myself.
I think that all came from the grievance, Cap?
It could have. Like I said, that's what they prepared me for. They said, you're not going to,
you have a bullseye.
Right. I mean, listen, I get it. I understand that I understand how guys would feel. But again, if you were working and the guys liked you, in the end, you're going to bounce around. You're going to hear your side of the story anyway, right?
And guys did like me. I always felt, you can, I worked with Rocky, Bob Galleone, all those guys I worked with, and we always had a great time. I got 2 unit citations in Rescue 2. So we just, I enjoyed working in Rescue 3. There's a lot of guys up there I enjoyed. So I was having a good time, You
think a lot of those guys who got bamboozled like you did over the years, like nobody would put in a grievance just because of that reason? Like you blackballed? Possibly.
Right. But
I don't think it's like that
I just felt, like this isn't right. That's just the way I was brought up, that, if this is the right thing to do it,
Yeah, if you could put your head on the pillow and you're happy with your decision, that's it, brother, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
So I was happy that, I filed the grievance, and whatever the outcome was, and I was prepared for the worst, and,
that's it.
So, and as it turns out, they did change the AUC, but other things that happened during that time was also a target on my back. I was working in Rescue 2, and it was a helicopter crash in the East River by Marine 6. And so we get into an accident with the school bus on the way to the job.
Oh my God.
As it turns out, there's no kids on the bus. It's only a minor accident. So I get off the rig. I go to the driver of the school bus. I said, "Oh, you okay?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm not hurt at all." I said, "Okay, stay here. Somebody's going to come." I get on the air. I advise the dispatcher, I'm continue on to the box, and please have a battalion engine truck respond to the location. It was 10 Neck Street. And so we continued down
I
to
already know where this is going.
the Navy Yard. Well, you may not, oddly enough.
All right.
but so we get there, and almost immediately we're told we can take up because Marine 6 had pulled all the victims out of the water. They had secured the helicopter. Everything was fine. We could take up. Well, at the time, they had a commissioner, civilian commissioner, who's a public relations guy. He was from NBC or something. And he says, no, you guys can't leave. You guys can't leave. He says, we got it over the cops here. I want every fire apparatus I can get here. Well, he held us there for an hour. So we get back to the scene, and the Battalion 3-5 chief is livid. I mean, he wants to have me arrested for leaving the scene of an accident.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then you are right. He wanted to have me arrested. And so I get back to Rescue 2's quarters, and there's a phone call. I get a phone call from SOC, one of the chiefs in SOC, and it's like 3:30 in the afternoon. And he says, you have to have a report on Chief Burns, who's the chief of operations desk, by 5 o'clock. Why you stayed at the scene. So typewriter back then, no computer. I type up the report. Yeah, exactly. I type up the report. I pile the guys in the rig, and we head to Skirmahorn Street, which where our headquarters was. I go up to the 8th floor to chief of operations, and he says, I have no problem you leaving the scene of the accident. He says, you did the right thing. You made a command decision. You were the only company responding with scuba abilities. You did the right thing. My problem is that you stayed there. So I said, well, it's all in my report. And he said, I said, the civilian commissioner kept me there. So he gets up. He says, you could go. And I said, yeah, everything's fine. He says, yeah, I'm going to have a conversation with my civilian commissioner. And as it turns out, an AUC was changed over that to reflect that, you listen only to uniformed personnel. And if a civilian commissioner or somebody tells you to do something, you check in with the uniformed personnel.
Hey, Coob, you see a pattern here?
I see a pattern here.
He gets to
AUCs. He's changing department orders.
He's changed up a lot of stuff.
He's a rebel. He's a rebel, bro.
I have copies. I have a folder up here, copies of reports that I wrote. After the Lena fire,
I could have used those, Cap.
After the Lena, I wrote a report on, second rescue should be assigned to a second alarm on a subcellar fire.
Subcellar. Oh, subcellar.
I know that's
subcellars.
So, that probably contributed to my problems as well.
Hey, he's wondering why he didn't get a spot, bro. Hold on a minute.
I was,
He's doing AUCs for him.
Yeah.
Not one, two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. So then you get promoted to captain in August of '94. So you have a story here.
Well, first, before I get promoted, I went to Rescue 2 UFO. And then I'm in Rescue 2 UFO for about, I don't know what was going on in Rescue 2 at the time, but I go to Rescue 2. I get promoted with Downey out of Rescue 2, and I go to the 5th Division. And now I had only had my bunker gear for 3 months, but it was already getting kind of salty. We're getting salty,
Yeah, see what you did there. See what you did there.
I like how you did that.
Look at him.
So guys, I also had a target on my back, which I'll explain in a minute. So guys were looking at me like with uncertainty.
You already did.
The guys were looking at me with uncertainty, like, okay, how did this guy's coat get so salty in like 3 months? That's all we had the bunker gear for, 3 months. So they were all great. The guys in the 5th Division were great. Eventually it transitioned into the 6th. So I went to see the SOC chiefs, who were the same SOC chiefs that I had the bus accident with.
Ruh-roh.
Here we go.
And I said, I want to come back into SOC. And they said, well, we're looking for people we can mold into leaders. And I'm like, what do you think I've been doing for the past 7 years? That's my mind, So left there with no holds. And the rumor or the scuttlebutt at the time was downtown wanted Downey and Sock, and Downey wanted in Sock. But they couldn't just lift these guys. And then there was a parking garage collapse on like Kips Bay area, Manhattan, if you're familiar with that. And according to the story, a staff chief said, where's the rescue chiefs? And a couple of days after that, Downey was in charge of Sock. A couple of days after that, I was back in Sock. And, I went back to covering in Sock again, except there was less spots open now.
Because you're a captain, right?
Well, that was fast.
So
He must have liked you, though, right? Obviously.
Well, I'm going to come up to that in a minute.
All right, come up to that. Go ahead.
Okay, so I covered into Sock for a few years as a captain, and now Squad 41 opens up. Spillane gets promoted like May or June, and I was covering another rescue spot, so Mike Banker got the UFO spot. I remember calling Downey and saying, hey, what's the story? And he says, well, this is the way the chips fall. I don't know what to tell you. And so I said, okay. So I continue covering wherever, and the department order is about to come down, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to get it. So now I'm going to backtrack a little. I had said that I was UFO in Rescue 2 before I got promoted to captain. What I didn't tell you was originally I was assigned there on a vacation spot. And at the time, I don't know what was going on. There seemed to be no other offices. Downey was doing a bunker gear program. Most days he worked at headquarters and he'd come in at night tours. So one night tour when he relieved me, he asked me, I asked him rather, I'd like to stay here UFO. And he says, well, I have no problem with that. I like what you're doing. He says, so yeah, I'll take care of it. Now, another month or two comes back down, and I get a phone call that Rescue 2's bunker gear is coming in. So I asked the guy who called, I said, well, what about my bunker gear? And he says, well, where were you measured? And I said, 27 truck in Bronx. He says, well, that's where you'll get your bunker gear. So I called Downey. I said, is anything you can do to help? A few days later, the bunker gear comes in. Not only is my bunker gear there, and this is why I said I had a target on my back earlier, Rescue 2 was the only company that got their bunker gear with a company name on the back, Rescue 2. The RES2, and my coat came with it too. So that was kind of like, hey, and now another month or two passes, and now we're both getting promoted. He calls me at home and he says, I want you to come to the promotion party as one of my lieutenants. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I've been there 3 months. He said, no, you're getting promoted out of Rescue 2. You're one of my lieutenants. And I was flabbergasted. I offered him money. He wouldn't take it. So here, this guy vindicated everything that all those guys that told me leave Sock and all that. He justified everything. So now Squad 41 opens. He tells me, just the way the chips fall. I happen to know somebody who worked at the transfer desk, a lieutenant. I called him 2 weeks before the transfer order came down, and he said, Downey, put your name in for the 41, unless down upstairs reneges on it, it's your spot. And that's what happened. I got the spot. Now,
see, I thought you were going to say your bunker gear came with a giant X on the back.
No, I actually had Rescue 2 on the back.
Bullseye.
You know what it's
A
like going
bullseye.
to a place like the 5th Division,
Yeah.
and you got this coat that's pretty salty and it says Rescue 2 on your back.
Ah, you were living the dream.
Yeah, so he really he really was the guy who justified everything I worked for. And it would be one more incident that I can't say for sure it was his doing, but I do believe it was. When the new rescue pumpers were scheduled to come in, I was supposed to get mine. I don't know how familiar you guys were at the time, but us and Squad 1 were supposed to. These rigs were designed by Seagrave and Jimmy Elson.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we were getting ours first. So
Yep.
I was told I can go down to this woman in the tool room and order any tools I wanted. So I had blueprints of the rig. So I tried to order as much as I could within reason. And what happened next was there was also, if you remember, and I don't know how familiar, one of the things of setting the squads up as hazmat units, they had to have a radio in their rig to communicate directly with hazmat, not go through the dispatcher to communicate. You had to communicate directly with hazmat. So I had written a report in May asking, that this radio be put in a rig through chain of command, everything like that. So now the rig's like 2 weeks away. I call up communications. I asked them, is the rig coming with the radio? And the guy says, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. A couple of days later, Downey calls me up. Who the fuck do you think you are? You're calling downtown and telling them you're not taking a rig if it doesn't have this radio? And I didn't know what he was talking about. And so I said, I never said anything like that. And I explained to him what actually happened. I wrote a report to chain of command. I called and just asked if the radio was going to be on the rig. I think what he did was he made them apologize, because a few days later, Mike Wineland, who was a staff chief, came to Squad 41's quarters and said, I just want to let you know, Russ, that we made a mistake downtown. We miscommunicated things, and I truly believe that was Downey telling them, because he told me Von Essen was livid. Von Essen was taking the rig away from us and everything. And I truly believe he was the one that sat there and said, you know what? This guy did the right thing. I'm not going to let them blame him for something somebody else's.
What's that story? How do you say, Coobs?
What?
Telephone, tell a
Telephone,
friend.
Yeah, tell a phone, tell a friend, tell a fireman.
But, I'm in
Telephone,
41.
telegraph,
I'm
tell a
working with some
fireman.
great guys. Bobby Hamilton, which Coob knows, Ed Walsh, Gibby Craig, Bobby DeLea, all great guys. And
They were doing some work up there too, man.
Oh, we're definitely doing work. Definitely doing
That place is kind of like in the armpit of the earth too. It really is.
Yeah. And there's some photos of us. That's Aldo Adisi there, and Joe Beltrani. Yeah, Joe Beltrani. Actually, Joe was a pick of Spillane's, but he hadn't come over yet. So Spillane asked me if I could take him. And Larry Sullivan, the guy that's standing right to my left, he was one of the three guys, along with Aldo Adisi and Tom Foley, who Ralph Tizo picked as Probies.
Probies. Yeah, right.
Yep.
That was the
only Gillespie.
Oh, Gillespie, Stevie.
Yep. There's
we had Stevie on the show.
There's Foley there. Yeah.
Yep. There's Foley. There's Aldo again.
Great.
What was Foley like?
Foley was a great guy. He's so easygoing,
Lindy.
Actually, one of the first fires I had in 41 almost turned into fisticuffs, and it involved Tom Foley and another guy. It's like literally my first fire. And back then they had where all those buildings are now. They had that fruit market or whatever it was. And so we get called for a fire in one of the things. And we're first due, right around the back where the report of the fire was. I call over the air that we might have trouble getting water, have any units, engines responding, be prepared to relay water or whatever. And there was a metal fence. Now, Tommy had the nozzle, and it was a metal fence with a lock on it. So Tommy jumps off the rig, grabs the saw, cuts the fence. We could get the rig in now. Now he jumps up to where the fire smoke's coming out of the building. He cuts the roll down gates. And now he's supposed to have the nozzle, but the guy who's in the backup had by this time stretched the line. Well, now we're about to charge the line, and they're fighting over who has the nozzle. I mean, literally ready to go at it for fisticuffs. Who's the nozzle? And this is my first job with them, so I don't know what you fucking guys are doing, but I'm going inside to find a fire. And it turned out to be a big scene because the guy that Tommy was picking on, he wanted to take medical leave, and eventually I had to let the guy go. I didn't let many guys go from 41, but the guys that I did were mostly over personality problems. Wasn't not the prior dude.
Which one?
The last picture.
Gandiello was up there. Was Gandiello up there when you went up there?
Oh, Gandiello, sure.
Yeah.
That's Mikey Lindy and Andy
Mike
Barnes.
Lindy. Right? Yep. Jimmy McGettrick, who is in Squad 41 now. Oh, Tommy Cullen, right? Who's in Rescue 2 now.
Oh, who was the little guy on the right again? Who was the little guy on the right?
When I first got there, the three bosses were Chris King, who became the captain of Rescue 3, Dennis Moranchek, and Charlie Schmidt. Charlie Schmidt. Yeah. Okay. Now, when I got to 41, operationally, there was very little to change. The only thing I think I changed operationally was I said, I want a saw in front of a taxpayer. Don't tell me you got to go back to the rig to get the metal cutting blade or anything like that. I want that in front of the taxpayer. That was the only. All the other things were, as far as assignments for all the different new things we had, ropes and all that stuff, and who was entering in confined spaces and hazmat and all. Funny story. I don't know what hazmat they taught you, but our first learned training in hazmat was basically a year's worth of chemistry 101 in 2 weeks or 1 week. And now I get a job with the sanitation truck, which was happening. I think a sanitation worker died. It's happening quite a bit. And we put the litmus paper in, and it's acidic. So I was taught just throw an alkaline base. Well, nobody taught me. They taught me all this chemistry, but nobody taught me to make a slurry. Yeah. I didn't even know what a slurry was, so.
I'm in Carvel.
Something you get at 7-Eleven. Slurry.
Slurry, yeah.
A grape slurry. Or is it a Slurpee?
Slurpee.
I mean, I'm bypassing a lot of stories that, I wanted to tell, but I know time's a factor. So, I don't want to take up that, but I have stories when I first became captain. Downey was in charge of SOC that, he had me do some things like, okay, this is not good, but I'll do it,
Well, how did you guys feel when the other squads came online?
I had no problem with the other squads.
Mm-hmm.
I really, actually, it helped a little bit because it allowed the opportunity for, us to take younger guys.
Uh-huh.
Joe DiBonato had come to me first, and Downey, even Mike Lindy had come to me, and Downey said no. He doesn't even have 5 years on the job. He told me no. But Mike came with a lot of, not wards, but, different types of diplomas or certificates for training that he had. And I called Downey. I said, he has these certificates. He said, do you want to see them? I asked him, do you want to see them? He said, nope. If you say they're good, then, you want to bring them, bring them.
He was there a long time, Mike.
Yeah, Mike was there a long time. And then he went to Rescue 3, of course, when Mickey Convoy got promoted. But
still working up there, man.
What's that?
Mickey's still working up there.
I know. I find that crazy. Mickey was a fireman when I first went there, in like in the early 90s.
Was Genovese there with you, Cap?
Who was?
Sean Genovese.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Sean Genovese left not too long after I got there. Within a year after I left, got there, he was gone, I think, if I remember correctly. But Sean was there, most definitely. All those guys.
Back as a boss.
The problem, which one of the main things my goals were when I got there was to elevate Squad 41 to the same level as Squad 1, meaning no second and third do boxes. So that was that. And then the second thing, I just wanted to elevate them. And then the second thing I wanted to do was actually get our name changed to Squad 41. So Von Essen came to quarters and he was all on board. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Needless to say, the uniformed personnel downstairs didn't think it was a good idea to get rid of the second, third, do boxes. But he was still open to us changing our name if the neighborhood agreed. So we go to a meeting, all of the guys from Squad 41 to the church up the block. You know, there's that church up the block from Squad 41.
Mm-hmm.
And we give this whole presentation of how great, we are, what benefit we are to the community. And all we're asking for is some, acknowledgement by letting us name ourselves Squad 41. This 18-year-old nun stands up and she says, as long as I'm alive, you'll be Engine 41. And that was the end of it.
It's amazing how people were so engrossed with that, huh? I mean, it's nothing really. I mean,
yeah, it was nothing, but they were
freaking.
They were enhanced.
It was ingrained
Engine
into
41.
them, man.
Enhanced Engine 41.
Enhanced
and it caused
engine.
a lot of problems at the beginning. That's why those early guys like Kleehouse eventually left. But, he before him, it was Gary Howitt and Kevin
Paulie
Williams.
Soman was there, Coop, in 41?
Soman? Yeah, he was in 41.
Yeah, Paul Soman was in 41, most definitely.
Yeah, they did a lot of work, man.
Yeah,
They
we did a lot of work.
These
Guys were
did
still going back.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody did a lot. I worked one night tour on Rescue 1. We had a detail from Rescue 5, and we had 8 jobs. I mean, back then it was literally you sent the chauffeur back to the rig, or the chauffeur, if he knew what he was doing, went back to the rig when he thought the fires, near out. But we had 8 jobs, and the firefighter from Rescue 5 said, "This is always like this." And I said, "No, not in Rescue 1. It isn't always like that. But in Rescue 2 or Rescue 3 or Rescue 4, it could be that."
Yeah.
Well, Rescue 4 had some long runs.
Yeah.
Oh, down to the Rockaways, man. Yeah.
I mean, some really long runs.
Yep.
And
Oh,
I got
other
to
things
see
are
things
long.
like the Golden Venture. I had, like I said, I got 2 unit citations. In Rescue 2. So I had a lot of fun. It was just, to me, it was just so rewarding. And, I loved the job. I loved what I was doing. And had 9/11 not happened, I would have stayed. But I do want to give a shout out because I did mention earlier, and I know it's getting to that 145 mark. So I do want to mention. So I mentioned earlier that, I was really mad at Terry Hatton.
Right.
Over the whole thing with Rescue 4. So as there was a lieutenant in Rescue 1 that every time there was a detail or overtime in Rescue 1 from 41, he'd call and say, who you sending, how much fire experience he has, all this stuff. And I just told the other officers, just send whoever you want. No big deal. Just send whoever you want. Well, one of the firefighters from Squad 41, that wasn't acceptable to him. He called up the lieutenant and gave him his peace of mind. Who, basically told him, like, who are you to tell us? We do more fires than you guys do in them. You do more fires in the night tour than you guys do in a week, all this stuff. Well, what surprised me was a couple of days later, Terry calls me at home and he says, Russ, any guys you want to send me from 41, I totally accept. I have no problem accepting them. I totally understand, that they'll probably be good guys. That was the first thing that Terry did that really, like, okay, well, this guy's more stand up than, I had always accused him of. The second thing was just before 9/11, and this was in June, and unfortunately, a number of these guys ended up dying on 9/11. But just before June, my daughter was moving into an apartment on 49th Street and 11th Avenue.
Oh my God.
And so I drive all her belongings from upstate New York down there. She's supposed to have all these friends helping her. Nobody's there.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew where you were going right as soon as you said it, where the address was.
So I called up Rescue 1. Terry's working. Within 5 minutes, all I asked him was, Ted, just help me with some of the heavy stuff, and I'll take care of the rest of the stuff. Well, within 5 minutes of me calling him, he was there. Bill Henry was working, Patty O'Keefe was working, Mike Montesi, all those guys, all of Terry's groups were lost on 11. And it was such a home run. I offered to buy him the meal. He wouldn't accept it. He didn't have to do that, Yeah. And he just to me, that was a really stand-up move on his part.
You know what, Cap? Maybe that's meant to be just because, now you have that feeling towards him as opposed to early on. I mean,
That's true. It's true.
That's a good thing,
Yeah, that's true. Because I did. I totally. I mean, of course, I changed my mind quite a bit when he called me at home and said, "Your guys are welcome here anytime," because that's another thing for another captain to call, and especially since one of his officers were the one who was giving us trouble. That was another stand-up thing.
Huh. I tell the story all the time, Cap. I got a detail there one time early on when we first became a squad, and he's in the kitchen writing a roll call. And he's at the table and he's writing, and he just looks up at me like this, and he goes, "Does your mother know you're here?"
I have opinions on officers. I think that
so.
You have officers that are Captain Kirk's of the job, and you have officers that are George Patton's of the job. I always looked at there are officers who there are firefighters who happen to be officers, and then there are officers who once upon a time were firefighters, and they forget where they come from, and so I always looked at guys from that point of view, like, is this guy still a firefighter at heart? And Terry was,
Oh yeah, no doubt. He lived for the job too, that guy, man.
Yeah, he did. And I see lots of guys like that. I mean, I had a great side job. I was a real estate appraiser, so I didn't get into, I'm not a teacher. So I do want to tell one story of the scariest moment on the job and the most embarrassing moment on the job, on the same job.
Do it.
So I'm in 168 truck covering as a lieutenant. And like 4 or 5 in the morning, somebody comes knocking on the door and says there's smoke coming out of the plumbing supply store. So we get there, roll up, it's right outside, right up the block from 168's quarters, 243 in a battalion. And I tell the guys, cut the locks, but don't open the gates until you hear from the roof. Somebody says there's a woman in the apartment sleeping. It was a 2-story with a commercial on the first floor, apartment on the second. Floors were just wooden doors, easy to break down. I ran up there, woke her up and said, "Come on, you got to get outside." And now we open up, or actually the chief did open up the gates. And we open up, and the fire's going pretty good in the room, and there's a flatbed truck filled with propane cylinders. And I'm like, oh shit. I had seen with the Third Avenue collapse what propane cylinders can do. So I get behind the engine officer and I said, "We have 2 choices here, dude." I said, "We either run like hell or we push more." As it turns out, it wasn't that bad because the back was an open garage door and it was fully vented. And you couldn't see that initially because of the fire, but it was. So it wasn't. And a secondary truck pulled a flatbed truck out of the garage. But now it's like 25 minutes into the fire, and the chief wants us to search the second floor. By this time, Rescue 2 is there, and there's a courtyard in the back, and there's steps up to this platform where there's a rolled, garage door. That's not the typical, roll down gates. It's like, rigid installation between 2 metal panels of some sort, aluminum, whatever they were, steel. So I start having the guys cut it. And there's Rescue 2 with John Norman working, looking up at us. And the guys are having a hell of a time cutting this thing, and the blade kept on binding up. All of a sudden, the owner of the building comes. And he stop what you doing? So he walks over, he grabs the handle and pulls
it up.
Like such an idiot, there's Rescue 2, like your eyes.
Hold on a minute, you got this.
You dick. I got along good with John Norman. I used to kid him in the 16th Battalion, down. He's only got 2 more years. He's going to retire. You're going to take the spot. And so
good guy. I'm going to go through some quick questions. You give me the quick answers, all right? This is Firehouse Life. You ready?
Go ahead.
This is where we wind up. Favorite meal in the firehouse?
I have so many meal stories, but anything that to do with, lobster or any sort of seafood
Fish.
dish.
Lobster and
Fish,
seafood.
huh?
We don't eat that way in the firehouse. It's hot dogs.
Yeah, on
in the firehouse,
occasion.
right?
Although
I
I do have a
Yeah.
great story with Steve Gillespie and food, but there's so many little stories here and there.
Favorite movie in the firehouse?
In the early days, it was probably porn because that's all we watched.
Allegedly.
Cap.
Every week,
Allegedly.
you go to the video
Allegedly.
rental store
Never happened.
and you rent porn.
I heard it
Favorite
happened.
night
Could
working
happen.
in the firehouse?
Favorite what?
Favorite night working in the firehouse?
I can't really say. I guess probably the Golden Venture because it was such an unusual operation that I never experienced in my life, and very few people would. So,
Favorite type of fire that you would go to? Favorite building type?
multiple dwelling, definitely.
All right, there you go. Let's get a little insight. All right, I think it's that time.
I think it is.
What do you think?
I think
It's that
so.
time.
It
What?
is.
It's time for. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
The,
old school tip.
tip of the day.
Take it away, Cap.
Okay, I have a few old school tips. My first one is you guys often talk about knowing your way out. I want to add to that by saying know where you are. I have seen plenty of times, guys, someone thinking they are on a particular floor and they are wrong. If it's an MD or something of that nature, it's easy to look out a window. But sometimes it's a warehouse, high rise, something like that. You don't know. You can lose track of where you are. And if you have to give, which is the second part of my thing, if your planned way out is blocked and you have to give a Mayday, well, you have to know where you are, and if you're giving if you're not the person giving a Mayday, shut up. And if you are the person giving a Mayday, then be specific, direct your Mayday signal to someone, preferably the incident commander, tell them exactly what company you are, what your location is, which goes back to point one, and then what the reason of the Mayday, whether it's somebody, firefighter collapsed, you're trapped, whatever the case may be. You don't always, if the incident commander doesn't, answer you, don't always follow protocol and wait for them. I know, sometimes we're forced as a paramilitary group, organization, we always wait for okay, you can go ahead with this, it's all right. Well, don't always. And I learned that from Jack Pritchett, and one of the gutsiest acts I seen from an officer on his job for a decision that could have gone really bad and ruined all he was Patty Brown as the officer at Rescue 1 on that roof rope rescue. They don't call Rescue 1 the Hollywood Rescue for nothing. If that rescue had happened out in the Bronx or Throg's Neck, no cameras would have caught that rescue. But here it is on full view, and it was just a gutsy move decision on his part. So I give him credit as, one of the things Jack Pritchett used to say to us, give us a hypothetical. Some car crashes into a gasoline tanker. The thing's going good. The guy's trapped. You can't get him out. Do you leave him there? There's no engineer to put out the fire. Do you cut off his leg? It was just a hypothetical Jack Pritchett would throw at us. And then the last tip has to do with your sort of health and safety. You may go your whole career never seeing any death, which would be unusual if you're in any active fire department, but you have to find a way to deal with that, to compartmentalize it. One of the first deaths I saw was very gory. It bothered me for months. And I learned very early on, you have to find a way to deal with it. And if you can't, back then, there wasn't as much opportunity for mental health. There is now, so don't be afraid. For us, we had a psychologist assigned to Squad 41 after 9/11 who turned out to be a great guy who I've seen many a time since then. And he was just another member of the hanging out with us to let us come. But before also I go, I also have to point out something that I had hoped to bring in. and this isn't a tip of the day, I want to acknowledge the firefighters I lost on 9/11. Mike Keeley was a great firefighter. I wish I had gotten to know him better. Bobby Hamilton always was my chauffeur. He used to always say, "I'll give you a deuce." I wish I could still hear him say, "I'll give you a deuce." Bruce Van Hine, we used to bust his chops about bringing, Reckitt, Orange County Reckitt into Firehouse. We called it the Woodchuck News. Tommy Cullen, I was known, which didn't always go well, as the three-headed captain. And I say to Tommy Cullen, well, one day you might be on that shoulder as one of the captain's heads. And he said, nope, I'll only be a nub on your shoulder. I'll never be more than that. Mike Lyons just made me laugh. And this goes back to what I was saying about Mike Davis. The only reason Mike Lyons came to 41 was he was a firefighter in 44 engine, and he just showed up continuously. He just said, brought cake and just showed up. Even when I wasn't working in the other offices, where he always showed up, and he showed his desire of coming to the company. And then last is Greg Sikorsky, who served in the Marine Corps and reserves. And so whenever the guys would bust my chops, he would say, Cap, I'll take care of it. He's just one of those guys. So I just want to give a shout out to them because I do miss them all. So.
Very nice, Cap.
Cap, great show. You tell a great story. You laid out.
I hope so. I mean, I hope I didn't bore people to death.
No, not at all.
And that's only a tip of the iceberg.
Oh,
things that
I have to have you back on because Ed Walsh is in the chat, and he's been saying the whole time he wants to hear some stories about 9/11. But I think we'll have you back on at some point.
Well, I would appreciate that because I have stories that just go along with all a lot of the guys you have on the show.
Excellent. All right, Roof, you have any shout? We have a shout out, right? We actually have a line of duty. So those of you guys, we talk about Rob Brown all the time, right? Dr.
41
Rob
guy.
Brown. He's a 41 guy, right? Rob Brown.
Yeah.
Lieutenant there. Anyway, line of duty death notification. Robert E. Brown Sr., his grandfather, 87 years old, still doing it, passed away on the scene of a brush fire on 1/18/2024, served with the Glendale Fire Department, Spartanburg, South Carolina, since 1959, bro. Yep. He's a fire chief from 76 to 2017. So line of duty death, you know what we do. We give him the 5 bells. Rest in peace, brother. And that's talking, Ruffy. You want to talk about?
Yeah, so I went Friday to see Rob for my annual checkup, the New York Firefighters Heart and Lung Institute, and he gave me a letter that I guess they sent out in December 28th last year, and just a quick lineup of stuff that they found: 8 arrhythmias, 1 triple bypass, 1 quadruple bypass, 24 cardiac catheterizations, 7 stents, 12 cases of cancer, skin cancer, 8 thyroid cancer, 1 prostate cancer. He goes into all of these, 1 Barrett's, 7 abnormal PFAs, 5 cases of sleep apnea. So these guys do everything. He was great when I went there. All the people that are working there are great. I was in and out of there, I think, in about 3.5 hours. So, we talk about him all the time on the show. It's all
early
funny
detection, Roof. Early detection.
It's all fun and games when you got dirty gear on the. I was the king of dirty gear, but now I'm like, oh my god, what is that?
Oh, I got a pain in my back. Is that cancer? I got cancer. I definitely got cancer.
We make fun, but only because we're scared to death.
Go get yourself checked out. Go find. If you're in New York City fireman, go to Rob Brown. If not, find your Rob Brown near you. They're all over the country. Go get yourself checked out.
Now,
don't wait till you find out something.
That part of the World Trade Center Medical, or that's something separate?
You could. Yeah, in fact, there's no. I think he was just telling me now they have a grant. There's not even a copay.
Oh, I like copay.
I'll give you the number.
Okay, yes. Text it to me.
Yep.
Excellent.
Well, I'll give it to you
Because
right
actually, this past year, last year, from the World Trade Center Medical, they found a lump in my chest, not my lungs, in my chest. And it was very fortunate that, I called the thoracic surgeon down at MSK. He said, yep, that's going to come out. 3 weeks later, they took it out. No further treatment.
Oh, you
But
gotta
then
go see
since then, I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer, which next
Oh, no.
week, I'm going for the, procedure to take care of that. But
All right.
yeah,
Early
it's,
detection, Cap. Get it out of there.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the only thing about the prostate was because I had the thing in my chest, and then the runaround with the prostate that I was given. Every doctor I saw was, oh, you got to get this test. There was one radiologist at MSK swore I had colon cancer based on my PET scans and stuff, and swore it metastasized to my liver.
Oh,
So
my
before
God.
anybody would do anything, I had to go to MSK and get a colonoscopy, and it was just everything's been a disaster. I don't have as much faith in the medical system as I did, but
Rob,
So we wish
I
you
would
the
advise
best, Cap.
anybody that has a problem to don't just listen to the person that tells you, that's doing a checklist, and say, you want a person that's listening to what you're telling him and is actually designing your treatment around what you're telling him.
Something like that might require a second and third opinion just to be
Well,
sure.
that's what ended up happening. They had decided on a treatment at MSK, and I reached out to this doctor at New York Langone, and he says, I don't know why they're doing it. He says, I have a better way to treat this that is much less problematic, and that's what I'm going for next week.
All right. We wish you the best, Cap.
Yep.
Did you have that surgery to remove the bullseye off your back? Or
I did. It was. But,
It was the dart that was still there.
You got the 40 truck. You got all these great companies in the fitness.
I hear you. All right, Ruff, who do we have? Oh, we have a guy from Baltimore City coming on.
Stephen Cobo, right?
Big, bad Baltimore City on Thursday. So tune in. We'll hear about another city. And enjoyed the captain on tonight. Thanks so much,
Yeah,
Cap.
for sure. Thank you,
Stay
Cap.
on. Don't go nowhere.
Nope.
Gonzo, thanks for being right up on the pictures tonight.
Oh,
Fantastic job.
yeah,
Gonzo.
Good to the sort of facine, you son of
Just
a
yelled
bitch.
at him one time. Next thing you know, he's flipping pictures like crazy. Well, it took. You got to tighten the bolts, Kubi.
Tighten the bolts. Listen, anybody wants to advertise on the show, send me reach out to koobspodcast@gmail.com. Also send you stuff because we renewed the cocktails and cocklofts. So I've been getting some stuff. So send a picture of your lid, send a picture of your rig, send a picture of your kitchen table, send a picture of you and your boys at a fire. Send a picture of anything you want on cocklofts and cocktails, and we'll get them up on the screen because that's what we do. And that's it. All right, boys. See you on Thursday. Cap, thank you very much.
Thank you. I
Until
really
the-
appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. Until then, fellas, ladies and
A
gentlemen,
little bit of my story. So
we'll get some more. Stay low and go.
All right, everybody. We'll see you at the big one. Thanks again, Cap.
All right,
Guys.
guys. I'm repeating it. Saddle up. Sounds like work, baby.
Oh, I like it.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.